Welcome back to the good news. So I got a pitch from a PR company for 2 different books. And what I loved about both of them is I brought in both of the authors. I love the idea that God can speak to you and steer you in a direction that may be completely different than what you've done before. And many of us don't answer that call because we're afraid, we're fearful of change. But I also like the idea of providing clean, faith-oriented, books for children that teach them about being kind to others. And so many books now out for kids have kind of an attitude, like even some of the tween shows, kids talking back, kind of bratty kids, bullying kids. And so it's nice to have books where they can, read about characters that coincide or don't go against your faith. Let's put it that way. So I've got 2 authors in today. We've got Ross Boone, a.k.a. Ross Boone, who wrote Squire and Daniel, a story about losing your best friend, which is so stinking cute, Ross. I just love it.
Thank you, Angie.
Just adorable. And then also Jimmy M. Smith, and he is a former pastor who wrote Slobber and Sanity, a man hounded by his dog. Welcome, Jimmy.
Thank you, Angie.
So neat that you guys both have the same publishing firm. Mm-hmm. So we brought you both in on the same day, and I thought that'd be kind of fun. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Thanks for having us.
You're
Such a pleasure.
welcome. Well, Jimmy, you used to watch me on the news, so it's always fun to meet people who used to be, viewers. Now, hopefully, I have some of those people as listeners. So tell us a little bit about you. You were a pastor, and you've actually pastored mega churches in Dallas and then in Denver. And then I found this very interesting, worked as a corporate chaplain for an IT firm in Boulder. I didn't know that IT firms in Boulder would even have a corporate chaplain, which I think is totally cool. And then you moved on, to be a national speaker and an author. So what a transition you've had.
I've had a very checkered life.
Checkered.
That's right. It's been really exciting, and as you mentioned earlier, I had no idea I would ever be where I am today. I never thought I would be the chaplain of an IT firm, as I have served. The founder of that company was a young man that I mentored for 5 years of his life. That is so
neat.
And so when I decided it was time for me to step aside from the senior pastorate here in Denver, he called me and said, I would like to have a chaplain in my company.
Oh, that is so neat. And someone that you mentored, what a blessing.
It is. It was wonderful.
Wow. And that's so unusual. But, I think it'd be so beneficial.
Yes.
To have a chaplain, because I think that to have faith within the workplace, but openly, and then someone to lean on when you have issues.
Right.
When I was in TV news, it wasn't real, Christian faith was not part of the newsroom, but people knew I was a Christian. So friends, even who weren't Christians, found me in the makeup room when they were upset or having problems. They'd come in the makeup room really early in the morning, like 3:15 in the morning, and come in to talk to me because they needed someone to talk to, and they knew I was like the closet Christian in the newsroom.
There you were.
Yeah, there I was. All right, so let's talk about this transition from senior pastor to writing Slobber and Sanity, a man hounded by his dog.
I had used these stories about this dog, who was without doubt the most incorrigible creature that I have ever known in my life. Totally untrainable, totally atypical of what anyone would tell you about a basset hound. And after the whole process that's described in the book of living with her, I decided I might be able to listen to God through her and learn some things from her. And so that's what the book is. It's a putting together of the stories that I've related to others in speaking engagements, and the lessons that as I meditated on it in later years, that God taught me through this dog.
Well, it's interesting because the lessons are pretty in-depth. Dump your toxic relationships, love while you can. Work is just work, not life. Games should be fun. Speed bumps in life. So real lessons that you teach through, what you learn from the dog in Slobber and Sanity. And also, you've been married for over 50 years, which I think right there, that's impressive.
Right.
Now, in terms of your speaking engagements and writing, What are some of the things that, as a Christian, you hope you convey to people? Because I know you've also, survived a really tough cancer battle as well. So not only have you had many careers, you have another chance at life.
Right, right, and I'm grateful to God for it. The main thing that I want to communicate to people in writing now is laughter.
Oh, I love that.
I found while I was in the cancer clinic and the hospital at University of Colorado Hospital that the people who would laugh with me were the ones who were the most helpful.
Interesting.
And it kept me with a positive perspective on what I was going through and alleviated incredible pain.
Oh, I'll bet.
It was great. So I really want them to, I wrote this because it was so funny to me. And I sent it off to our publisher, and she laughed so hard that people came from the other offices to find out what she was laughing at. And I wanted just to share the fact that life can be joy no matter where you are and what you are.
To find the joy even in the midst of the pain. And Ross Boone, a.k.a. Ross Boone, which I think is hilarious because it probably is how kids say Ross Boone, is Ross Boone. In Squire and Daniel, a story about losing your best friend, I love it that you loved your aunt so much, and when she lost her husband, so your uncle, you felt helpless to comfort her, and then wrote this book about losing a best friend.
Right.
And I just think it's beautiful that you too, you went to school to be an engineer, and then you went to school again to in industrial design, and that you also went through a huge career transition. I mean, from being an engineer, and then you were designing outdoor furniture and decor, and now you're an author. Like, how did this transition take place? And then we'll talk about the beautiful message about losing your best friend in Squire and Daniel about two donkeys.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. So my dad's a great engineer, and I went to the School of Mines here in Colorado for engineering.
I mean, very good school. I mean, that's like you're no dummy to get into the School of Mines. That's like the real deal.
Thanks. The whole time, though, there was this creative side of me that was just itching to get out.
Which isn't normally like, my brother's an engineer. I can't see him authoring a book about two donkeys who were best friends, you know?
So after the engineering, I went to industrial design, which has a much bigger creative element.
Right.
And after I did that, which was a great career for 7 years or so, I started doing illustration and writing for my own blog. And people started coming to me and saying, like, wow, you can draw. Would you like to illustrate a book for me or do this drawing for my website? And so I started doing that and realized that I can make a living at that.
The drawing, the illustrating.
Yeah, and so...
And it's fun.
It is so fun. I have had such a good time drawing. I sit in front of my computer with this big drawing screen, and I just draw for hours. It is like what I was built to do. And writing the story that goes along with these pictures really just helps me deliver a message that I feel like our generation could benefit from.
Okay, so then you make this transition. You end up, I love how God, pulls, like, so I said to God when I was in TV news, if you want me to quit, you've got to pull the plug, because I can't step away from 20 years and a six-figure career that I worked 7 days a week for, worked 7 days a week all through high school and college at Boulder Community Hospital to earn my education, and then to just walk away from it seemed completely stupid to me professionally. And so I remember saying, God, you have to pull the plug because I can't quit on my own, and I was not happy anymore.
Right. I have an interesting story there. I had a great job. About a month before I got let go, I started praying, God, I would love a fund source so I could write and draw full time. I want to give this message to the world. And a month later, I got let go and found out that I could do this freelance illustration for enough. I can make myself enough money to survive and have enough in half the amount of time.
Really?
And then have the rest of the time to be able to write and draw these books that I want to give to the world.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about the message in Squire and Daniel, because again, I love books that give my kids like a clean, be kind to others message that I feel comfortable with them reading. I'm so tired of books for kids that are snotty, with kids with attitudes that talk back to their parents. I mean, I'm trying to keep my kids from talking back to me, and I'm going to give them a book that teaches them to talk back to me. So then when they finish, I can say, oh, but don't do that, don't talk back to me. And there's one book they're reading recently, and I won't give the name of the author, but very famous, very well known. And the grammar is so bad. It's purposefully bad because it's from the mind of a young person. But it drives my mom crazy. She can't even read it because as she's reading it, she'll go, well, that's grammatically incorrect. And this is the way you would say that. Well, that's not correct either. And then we can't even read the book because it's so grammatically incorrect. And that's supposed to be a kindergartner speaking, which I get it, but it's hard to read it to a kid and explain to them that that's not how the way you are supposed to speak. So anyway, it's neat to get a message that as a parent, you're like, oh, I love this. It's teaching them to care about each other. And it's a story about losing your best friend. So let's go into the background of that and how your aunt and uncle link into this.
Yes. So I lived in Atlanta when my uncle passed away, and my aunt was living then by herself in rural Kansas, and I just did not know how I could help her. So I had been doing the kids' book illustration and writing for a time, and I thought, well, at least I know how to do that. So I wrote a book about Squire and Daniel, who were their two donkeys that they owned.
So they're really your aunt and uncle's donkeys.
Yeah, so they lived on a farm, and Squire and Daniel, the names actually come from our relatives. We're related to Daniel Boone and his brother Squire. So
cute.
Able to kind of give it a personal touch specifically for my aunt and for my family with this. So I was looking for some way to communicate what it's like to lose your best friend, so my aunt could relate to it. So I used Squire and Daniel and the story of them chewing on fences together, looking across at each other, and pulling on the same carrot and playing in the field with butterflies together. And then Squire gets taken away. We don't know why. And or Daniel gets taken away, and Squire is sad. And so then trying to tell this story that after you're finally able to get up after loss and grief isn't as paralyzing anymore, what we can do is take the love that we used to give to our loved ones and find new people to give it to. Yeah,
and I'm looking at that because it gets to the point where when he starts to feel a little bit better, because he's thinking, what would Squire want me to do, to love others, really. He went and found a bunny, or several bunnies, and shared his carrot, and then found a beaver and went and chatted with him. And so basically he starts reaching out to others, which time and time again we hear, if you get outside of your own pain and help someone else, that you start to feel better. And you said, you don't know if this influenced your aunt, but she also started volunteering a lot at church and working with children.
It was beautiful. She started going to church and found the youth group that she could help out with. And my family and I, we love her so much, and just were so blessed hearing that she had found this way to start giving back. And it seems to be lifting her up and giving her something to live for and community to pull around her.
And she knows this is for her, the book, or that.
Yeah, it's dedicated to her.
I noticed it said for Maggie, I miss him too, meaning missing your uncle.
Uncle Richard.
Did this mean a lot to her? I'm sure it did.
I think so.
Flattering.
Maggie has been one of my biggest fans all along. She's bought the novel that I wrote before, and she's bought so many of these and given it to all of her friends. So it's really great to be able to support her in the way that she supported me.
Well, and in the good news, gentlemen, to both of you, and if you're just joining us, Jimmy M. Smith wrote Slobber, Insanity, A Man Hunted by His Dog, and he pastored mega churches in Dallas and Denver. And then Ross Boone is the author's name of Squire and Daniel, a story about losing your best friend, but it's really Ross Boone, which I just love that.
Ross Boone.
Ross Boone and Ross Boone.
Yeah, it's really confusing on the
that's
radio.
how a kid would say it, though.
Sure.
They would say Ross Boone as in Ross Boone. And so I think on the good news, we talk a lot about following, your calling, and that a lot of times when you just sit in the lazy boy of life and you're like, well, I'm just waiting here for God to give me my calling or tell me about my gifts, and I'm just going to sit here and watch football until I feel moved for, God to tell me about my gift. But sometimes it means action. And that you're stepping out, and that you're, as my pastor put it once, you've got to take the ship and let it sail away from the dock. You can't just sit at the dock and wait for that calling, because it takes action. And both of you and myself as well, leaving TV news and starting good news, it's a risk. It's a financial risk. It's not as comfortable to step out in these careers that may not pay as well or may be something new for us. And for you, Jimmy, you're in your retirement years. You've stepped into something completely new after having a successful career. You could just be sitting on the beach in Hawaii drinking umbrella drinks, but you want to touch people and make them laugh. And for me, the biggest compliment when I was in news, when people still approach me or write to me, was that I made them laugh, or I started their day off in a positive manner. One said that I was like the pot of coffee, or like the glitter glue of their morning, and or the pot of coffee of their morning. That was the ultimate compliment. That laughter. And I felt that was my gift that I could give people because I don't have a lot of other talents, Jimmy.
No, I don't believe that. But yes, it is to step into a new direction. When you knew all along that this is where God wanted you to be and had placed you, and suddenly you're out there swimming, seemingly alone and not really alone at all. It's a big step. And I had wanted to write for years, and people had encouraged me to write. And I just, as a senior pastor in large churches, you just really, unless you hire an amanuensis, you are just not going to be able to do that.
Interesting.
And so now I have the time, I have the opportunity, and I have about 4 more books that I know of right now.
Oh, in you, yeah. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yes.
Some famous author, and I can't even remember his name, but he said so many of us won't write the first couple of books to get to the book where we're amazing, and so we won't even pick up the pen, or now it's not pen anymore, get at the computer and type, to get to the point where we put out real, because he says a lot of people say to him, you're so lucky that you're talented. And he's like, well, I wasn't talented necessarily immediately.
That's right.
It took a while for me to write and get, talented.
Yes.
And so let's talk a little bit to you, Ross, in terms of, God calling you. You really felt called to do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Certainly a blessing. I love what I do right now. And I know this is really different than most people, but I feel like I'm single right now. I enjoy it. I feel like this calling gives me purpose. And if that means that being single the rest of my life so I can give this message to people, I'm ready for it. I feel like I have books and books in me. I have 5 other books out right now, or 5 total. And
good for you.
And you're exactly right. What you're talking about is the first one wasn't as good as the last one, and it just gets better and better. And I feel like finally, after putting my nose to the grindstone and my head to the task and my heart behind it, things are starting to engage and catch on, and hearts are being touched. So anybody out there who has this passion inside of them, itching, trying to tell them you have a purpose greater than that 9-to-5 job or just earning a paycheck, you have to look for the signs and wait for God to open up doors, I think. But God may be calling you to something bigger, and get ready, look for the signs, and jump in.
All right, I want to make sure people can find Squire and Daniel, a story about losing your best friend. Do you have a website or a place they can go?
My publisher has a deal right now. It's at Armory, with an O-R-Y, publishing.com.
Excellent.
And my website is rawspoon.com.
And Jimmy M. Smith, also same place, Armory?
Right.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for coming in.
Such a pleasure.